Today, we're unpacking a brilliantly disguised trap that pretty much all of us fall into at some point. You know the feeling, right? We tell ourselves we're just preparing. We're just waiting for the perfect time to act. But what if all that preparation is actually just an illusion? Welcome to this explainer on the anatomy of the wait and why we really hesitate. To really understand the cost of this, just listen to this heartbreakingly honest confession from a Reddit user. They admitted to losing an entire decade waiting for conditions to be, quote-unquote, just right. They were waiting for their anxiety and fear to vanish before they actually started living. And the result? They ended up feeling more broken inside. The hard truth is, time itself doesn't solve our psychological problems. In fact, our brains often mistake this painful waiting period for actual preparation, which just allows our doubts to solidify into permanent habits. Now, it's really easy to beat ourselves up when we're stuck in this waiting phase thinking, man, I'm just lazy. But laziness and procrastination are completely different beasts. Laziness is a simple reluctance to try. You genuinely just don't care. Procrastination, on the other hand, is an intentional, stress-driven avoidance behavior. You actually care immensely, but you're actively avoiding the task as a coping mechanism to deal with anxiety. And if you're sitting there thinking this is just some complex human character flaw, well, don't give us that much credit. Research actually shows that even pigeons procrastinate. Seriously, in experiments studying delayed gratification, pigeons will repeatedly choose a delayed, complex task over an immediate, easy one. So putting things off isn't just a modern moral failing. It's a deeply embedded biological glitch in how brains, human or otherwise, handle the future. Basically, inside your head, there's a constant battle raging. You've got the rational decision maker who completely understands your long-term goals. But sitting right beside them is the instant gratification monkey who demands to feel good right this second. Because uncertainty feels deeply, profoundly uncomfortable to the human brain, the monkey usually grabs the steering wheel. We dodge the anxiety of starting the difficult thing, and instead we choose the immediate comfort of, say, scrolling on our phones. To understand exactly why that monkey wins so often, we have to look at something called temporal discounting. This is the idea that the perceived value of a reward exponentially drops the further away it is in time. A reward you get in 1 hour, that feels highly motivating. But a reward in 1 year? The brain heavily discounts it. It barely registers. This is exactly why we tell ourselves, oh, I'll start my diet on Monday, or next month is going to be easier. The future reward of being healthy is discounted, so the present reward of eating a donut easily wins the battle. This tendency builds into the dreaded student syndrome. Thanks to the planning fallacy and our own optimism bias, we constantly underestimate how long tasks will take, and we completely overestimate how much energy we'll have in the future. We lack time spacing, so we delay and delay and delay until the approaching deadline finally wakes up the panic monster. Suddenly, the consequences are immediate, that temporal discounting vanishes, and we act, but usually under immense, totally unnecessary stress. But hey, it's not always just about avoiding effort. A massive culprit here is analysis paralysis, which is heavily driven by loss aversion. We are absolutely terrified of making the wrong choice, like picking the wrong career path or ruining a job application, that our cognitive load just maxes out. We've got fear of failure, excessive information, too many choices. We convince ourselves we're doing research before applying for that job, but really we're just drowning in data. And this decision fatigue directly prevents us from taking action. This ties directly into a pretty intense psychological concept, ego-dystonic perfectionism. This is a maladaptive, all-or-nothing mindset where any less than ideal outcome is viewed as a total, outright failure. If you aren't completely 100% sure you'll succeed, you just freeze. You halt all progress because, to your brain, not starting at all feels so much safer than starting and being less than perfect. Which brings us to a really fascinating paradox. Think about it. If we logically know that waiting just creates more stress, more panic, and literally zero productivity, why on earth do our brains stubbornly cling to this illusion of finding the perfect time? The short answer, because waiting offers us profound emotional protection. Waiting is essentially an emotional shield driven by status quo bias. If you tell yourself you'll launch your business or have that tough conversation when conditions are ideal, well, you never actually have to face the fear of failure today. You don't even have to face the fear of success. The future remains this pristine, untouched fantasy protecting your ego from the messy reality of stumbling right now. And part of that perfect future we envision is fueled by what positive psychology expert Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar calls the arrival fallacy. This is the false belief that reaching a specific goal is going to bring you lasting happiness. But because of hedonic adaptation, our brains actually adapt to new circumstances really quickly. If you wait to start your life until you hit a certain milestone because you think it's the magical key to permanent happiness, you are setting yourself up for a massive disappointment. So, we need a bit of a reality check here. As some of our philosophical sources note, time is the great equalizer. It is cold and unbiased, wholly uninterested in your dreams and plans. Time is going to pass whether you are ready or not. Waiting for your fear to clear or for the stars to perfectly align simply burns the clock. Time's only concern is forward motion, and waiting just squanders the one single resource we can never ever get back. Which leads us to the absolute core thesis of this explainer. We constantly wait to feel confident before we speak up or start a project, but guys, the human brain just doesn't work that way. Action creates confidence. Confidence is the biological byproduct of taking action repeatedly. It is not the prerequisite for it. If you wait for perfect confidence before you start, you are literally going to be waiting forever. Just look at some of the most highly successful people out there. None of them waited for perfect conditions. J.K. Rowling wrote the first Harry Potter book in loud, bustling cafes as a single mother. Karen Mazumdar-Shaw built a global pharma giant starting in a rented garage. Stephen King wrote Carrie daily during his off hours while working as a teacher. They didn't wait. They simply built momentum from exactly where they were, and that momentum completely changed their brain's perception of difficulty. So, how do we mimic them? Well, we can hack our own psychology using something called the Zeigarnik effect. This is the brain's natural tendency to obsess over unfinished tasks. If you can force yourself to just start something for 5 minutes, you trigger this effect and basically trick your evolutionary wiring. The brain logs the task as unfinished and will naturally push you to complete it. Small actions reduce uncertainty almost instantly. To put this into practice today, we can adopt what we'll call the "that one step better" mindset, which is fueled by what behavioral psychologists call implementation intentions. Step 1, say it out loud. Admit there is no perfect time. Step 2, make a hyper-specific plan for the absolute smallest possible step. Step 3, take action on it immediately. Action first, overthinking later. And step 4, celebrate it, because celebration literally tells your brain that action equals reward. And when I say small, I mean this first step needs to feel almost ridiculously easy. Delaying a creative project. Do not commit to writing a whole chapter, just write one single sentence. Waiting to ask someone out. Just walk over and say hello. By lowering the bar all the way to the floor, you entirely bypass that analysis paralysis we talked about. The exact moment you complete that tiny task, you build immediate cognitive self-trust. You prove to your brain, hey, I am a person who takes action. Because at the end of the day, perfect timing isn't something you find, it's something you stop waiting for. Yes, our brains evolved to seek certainty and wait for safety, but in the modern world, that instinct completely holds us back. Meaningful progress always begins before certainty arrives, so don't let the illusion of the perfect tomorrow rob you of the reality of today. Ask yourself, what is one ridiculously small step you've been putting off that you can take right now, today, to finally step into the unknown?